Hi, welcome back to the Falcons Eerie. Told you I'd be back eventually. Just waiting for some questions to roll in, and actually, that's been kind of a humbling thing for this first time around because in the last almost 3 weeks, I've gotten one question, one. So that's a little humbling. But it is what it is. If you're going to throw something out there for the public to consume, the public's going to tell you whether or not they're interested, and you just got to put on the big boy pants and deal with what comes back. So that being said, I did get a question, and I'm not going to let down the one individual who asked me a question. I'm going to answer it, and maybe it will spur further questions in the future. We'll see. So anyway, before I do that, I'm going to set down some expectations for what these future videos may look like, assuming that there are future videos, because again, if I don't get any questions, then what's the point of doing this? Expectation number one, I am going to respect everybody's anonymity. This is going to go on my blog, on Falcons Eerie, nhfalcon.wordpress.com. It's also going to go up on Facebook, and in this day and age, I understand that people want to likely remain anonymous, so I'm not going to refer to anybody by name. I'm not going to refer to anybody by their blogging names, unless I get responses back from them in the future that say, "Hey, it's okay. Go ahead and use my blog name. Go ahead and use my real name. I don't care." If that's the case, then I will. But otherwise, I'll simply, refer to somebody as, my friend, a family member, a coworker, that kind of thing. I'll keep things intentionally vague out of respect for people's anonymity. Second expectation to set is that I will go off on tangents. It's inevitable. It's part of my personality. I'll be talking about something, and that'll remind me of something else, and I'll go off on a tangent. And eventually, I will bring it back to the topic at hand. But I'm going to go off on tangents, so just brace yourself for that. And in a similar vein, the third expectation that I will set is that I will never make a long story short, and I will often make a short story long. I don't know. I like the sound of my own voice, maybe. I like to provide context and backstory, and chances are I will provide more context and backstory than is really necessary. So be aware of that. I will never make a long story short, and I will often make a short story long. So, with those expectations in mind, I'll get to the first and thus far the only question that I've gotten to date, which comes from somebody that I met as a blogging buddy first, and then she became a Facebook friend. And she wants to know, how in the hell did I become an Atlanta Falcons fan? How did that happen? And given the way that she wrote the question, that's pretty much, I think, how the inflection is supposed to work when the question is verbalized. How in the hell did you become a Falcons fan? And it's made an even more amusing question because this woman is a New Orleans Saints fan, very devout New Orleans Saints fan, and the Falcons and the Saints have a hell of a rivalry. So that makes the question even more amusing. It's a long, geeky story. It was actually a question I was hoping I wouldn't get asked because it's a geeky story, but it got asked, so I'm going to answer it. I have never been to Atlanta. Never spent a day in Atlanta, ever. I think the closest I've ever come to Atlanta was flying over it on the way to Florida, maybe. I don't know the exact flight path of the jets that I was on at the time, but I've been to Tampa Bay once. I've been to Orlando twice, and probably the closest I've ever come to Atlanta is however close those three planes came to flying over Atlanta on the way to their Floridian destinations. I was born in Maine. I've lived in Maine and New Hampshire all my life. Never been to Atlanta. Never spent a day in Atlanta. So I'm a Red Sox fan when it comes to baseball. I'm a Celtics fan when it comes to basketball. I'm a Bruins fan when it comes to hockey. You would expect I'd be a Patriots fan when it comes to football. Nope. Falcons fan. How the hell did that happen? Well, here's the first example of making a short story long. when I was a kid, I didn't play sports at all and wasn't really that interested in sports. Eventually, I got around to playing baseball. I played farm league baseball, and then I played little league. And but by the time I got to junior high, I stopped playing baseball. I was asthmatic as a kid. Not that the family doctor realized I was asthmatic. He kept telling my parents that every time I had an asthma attack, I was just having a chest cold. So that was awesome. So I really preferred to stay indoors and watch TV or read books or what have you than go outside and play. And I would read about things like sharks and whales and giant squid and dinosaurs and birds of prey and things like that. But, one day, hanging out on a friend's porch with a bunch of other friends, and they start talking about football, and they start talking about their favorite teams. And they're going around the room, so to speak. Who's your favorite team? Who's your favorite team? Who's your favorite team? And as you might expect, most people are saying they're Patriots fans. One guy was a Chiefs fan, actually. I'm not sure how that happened. Another one was a Dolphins fan. Not sure how that happened. But pretty much everybody else was a Patriots fan. And then they get to me, and they're like, well, who's your favorite team? I'm like, guys, you know me. You know I don't care about football at all. The only sport that I pay any attention to whatsoever is baseball, and that's the Red Sox. I don't pay attention to football. I don't even know who the teams are in the league. Well, they did know me. And they did know what my interests were. They knew that I read a lot. They knew what I read about. And so, based on that, they started throwing suggestions out. So, well, there's the Dolphins. There's the Philadelphia Eagles. There's the Seattle Seahawks. There's the Atlanta Falcons. And when they said the Falcons, that's when I perked up. Because as I read all these books about all these different animals and stuff, I developed favorites. So my favorite dinosaur was Triceratops. My favorite whale was the sperm whale. My favorite shark was the great white. And my favorite bird of prey was the peregrine falcon. So when they said Falcons, I perked up. And I was, sure, them. They're my favorite team. And it stuck ever since. I had no clue at the time, none, just how bad the Falcons were. You've got to realize that even to this day, even with as successful as the Falcons have been over the last 5 years, over the history of the team, they still have a losing record, a losing one-loss percentage. They've never won a Super Bowl. They've been to the Super Bowl once. They've won maybe 4 or 5 division titles. They've been to the playoffs a handful of times. Up until this most current version of the Falcons, Mike Smith is a head coach, Tom Dimitroff is a general manager, Matt Ryan is their quarterback, etc. Up until this current version of the team, the Falcons were the only team in the history of the NFL that had never been able to put together back-to-back winning seasons. There's an exercise of futility for you. The closest they had come was 2004-2005. In 2004, they went 11-5. In 2005, they went 8-8. It's not a losing record, but it's also not a winning record. So they were able, in the first time in their history, they were able to put together back-to-back non-losing seasons, but not able to do back-to-back winning seasons. And this is a team that came into the league, by the way, in 1966. I decided that I was a Falcons fan just prior to the 1979 season. So I've been a fan now for coming up on 35 years, and that's how it happened. I've stuck with them through thick and thin. Most of it's been pretty damn thin. But there it is. There's the answer to your question. There's why I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan. So there you go. there's the first installment, hopefully, of many, for my little question and answer session here that I like to do. Feel free to chime in on my blog, on Facebook. I'm going to put this video up in both places. Feel free to ask questions about anything at all. You don't be afraid to bring up any subject whatsoever. I'm sure there are some people out there who may know me as far as politics are concerned and don't really want to get into a political discussion or argument or what have you. That's fine. It doesn't have to be politics. It doesn't have to be economics. It doesn't have to be religion. It can be whatever you want. You can ask those questions too, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. But there you go. For the person who asked the question, I hope that's a satisfactory answer. I hope this stimulates more questions and gets the ball rolling with this little experiment here. And I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.